We want to make our own cars. We don't really want cars from Canada. We put tariffs on cars from Canada, and at a certain point, it won't make economic sense for Canada to build those cars.
This is news that is hitting Canadian auto workers very hard. We know Stellantis did have those plans to create the Jeep Compass out of that assembly plant in Brampton, Ontario. And now news that is leaving Ontario and going instead south of the border. And that's going to lead to a direct impact to 3,000 Canadian jobs.
And this breaking news is concerning the already battered Canadian auto industry. General Motors saying today it is ending production of its Bright Drop electric delivery van in Ingersoll, Ontario.
This is a company, Stellantis, that has gotten over $10 billion in subsidies from taxpayers.
You make promises and then walk away, you will be held accountable.
I want U.S. automakers to know how significant and how high the stakes are. If they think they can just cut and run from Canada and leave a very minimal presence, there is consequences to that betrayal of Canadian taxpayers.
Stellantis, at least the Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep aspect of it, will not survive the Trump years intact.
Donald Trump shutting down talks on trade with Canada. He's driving so much of the Western world into the arms of China.
Canada is done playing nice. First it was US tourism, then alcohol, then groceries, and now Canada is reportedly boycotting US auto cars. Why? Because after Canada invested billions to save GM and Stellantis from collapse, billions, those same companies just turned their backs and ran straight into Trump's arms. They are shutting down Canadian operations, cutting jobs, and moving production back to the US because of Trump's new tariffs. But Canadians aren't taking it lying down. This is personal, and the way it's going, the US auto industry might be the next big casualty of the Trump tariff war. If you like deep dives like this, support the channel by buying me a coffee. Link is over there, because I definitely need one after this story.
This is a company, Stellantis, that has gotten over $10 billion in subsidies from taxpayers. And yet, in spite of those subsidies, is announcing killing over 3,000 Canadian jobs, sending them south of the border.
General Motors saying today it is ending production of its Bright Drop electric delivery van in Ingersoll, Ontario. The company says the decision is related to low demand for the product.
Let's rewind. Canada helped bail out GM and Stellantis when they were on life support. Billions in tax dollars. The deal was simple. Stay in Canada, make cars, build jobs, and boost the economy. Fast forward to now, Trump comes back, slaps tariffs on Canadian goods, pressures companies to bring it home, and boom, GM and Stellantis start pulling production out of Canada. They took the money, took the support, and now they are packing up. That's not business. That's betrayal. And Ottawa just hit back, capping how many US-made cars these companies can import tariff-free into Canada.
You make promises and then walk away, you will be held accountable.
A blunt message for Stellantis from the federal government. The industry minister said Ottawa is going after the car maker.
We'll start the 30-day period of the formal dispute resolution process in order to bring back production at the Stellantis Brampton facility.
In October, Stellantis announced it was moving production of its Jeep Compass from its Brampton, Ontario plant to Illinois. In response, the government capped how many vehicles Stellantis and GM can import tariff-free into Canada.
Now, let's be honest. If there's one thing Canadians have proven lately, is that when they say boycotts, they mean it. They stopped traveling to the US, and tourism numbers plummeted. They stopped buying US whiskey and beer. And we all know what happened there. And now they are turning that energy towards cars.
We have much more power than all of you might think. And now let me tell you what we can do, what our secret power is. And I'm going to speak directly to Doug Ford here when I tell you. What is our secret power? Well, the fact is we hold all the cards. What cards are you talking about? This card. These are the cards we hold. Your wallet. We all have wallets, and we have to use our wallets. Let me explain with data again. We go back to this same chart, and I highlighted this number here that Canada exports $58 billion of automobile value, mainly to the United States in 2024. Well, there's another number. We imported much more than that. $90 billion worth of value. And a lot of that is imports from the United States. So the United States hasn't thought this through. They haven't thought this through completely because they don't want us to manufacture the cars in Canada and export them to the United States. They would rather this number goes to zero so that they can build those cars and they can increase their exports and sell them to us. But we don't have to buy them. Look at this number here, $90 billion worth of imports. Most of that value coming from the United States. The United States only exports $144 billion in total, and most of their exports go to Canada, a big portion of this $90 billion, and Mexico, a large portion of this $65 billion.
2/3 of Canadians say they will boycott companies that abandon Canadian workers. And remember, Canada is one of the US largest auto export markets. If Canadians stop buying US cars, it's game over for big parts of the US auto industry. This isn't just an emotional reaction, it's economic strategy. And here is where the plot thickens.
I want US automakers to know how significant and how high the stakes are. If they think they can just cut and run from Canada and leave a very minimal presence, there is consequences to that betrayal of Canadian taxpayers. And what I mean by that is largely Canada is filled with North American-built cars. The U.S. automakers enjoy a massive market share in Canada. We are the largest export market for American vehicles. And that could change. You know, I'm sure there are car companies right now smiling with glee at the chaos that Donald Trump has created, whether it's Japan, South Korea, or China. You know, there'd be other automakers interested in setting up production in Canada if American cars could not be sold here. It would change the market. And so if Donald Trump really wants to put up a trade wall with Canada, it would devastate his own production because we are his largest export market. That's why I think a lot of us are scratching our heads. And does he really know the consequences of this divorce that he seems to be pushing?
Your cars might be getting a lot cheaper soon, also a lot more electric, and also a lot more Chinese. All right. As you know, Prime Minister Carney is expected to meet Xi Jinping later this week. He's already in Asia right now, meeting with other Asian partners. But if you remember, the Chinese made an offer to us to remove tariffs on canola exports and a bunch of other exports. I think meat is one of them, if we took off tariffs on the EVs. Since then, of course, we've been stabbed in the back by American manufacturers. They've been shutting down factories to move jobs south of the border because of the tariffs. And they're terrified of Trump more than they like being in Canada, I guess. So it seems more likely that we're going to take the tariffs off. In fact, Electric, which is a EV news reporting outlet, basically confirmed the rumors that that's an imminent move that the Chinese expect us to make at this meeting. I hope it goes ahead because we don't need EVs on Chinese cars anymore. And if you're worried about jobs, I should point out that when the Chinese manufacturers have moved into Europe, they've set up factories over there. They've taken abandoned factories from other either bankrupt companies or foreign exporters that couldn't compete anymore. They've taken those sites and retooled them for electric manufacturing for their brands. So this is good news for car buyers across the country.
On the one hand, Canada currently has a 100% tariff on electric vehicles imported from China, a wall meant to keep Chinese-made EVs out of the market. But here is the twist. There's word on the street that Canada might be quietly reviewing that policy. Multiple reports suggest Ottawa could be considering reducing or even removing that tariff as part of a broader trade relationship now forming with Beijing. Why? Because China has been signaling a possible swap, lower EV tariffs in exchange for reopening its markets to Canadian exports like canola and peas. And honestly, it makes sense. Canada holds the lithium, nickel, and clean energy to support EV manufacturing. And if it opens the door to Chinese EV companies to produce or partner locally, that could mean tens of thousands of new jobs. Imagine Chinese EV companies setting up factories in Canada, EVs built in Canada for Canadians. More competition, more jobs, and fewer US imports. And suddenly, US assembled cars start looking less essential. So if that 100% tariff war comes down even a little, it could reshape North America's entire auto balance. When Canadians set their mind to something, they follow through. We've already seen it. They boycotted US tourism. Vegas, Florida, Buffalo, and the US economy felt it. They boycotted American alcohol, and breweries took a hit. Now, imagine that same focus turned on cars: Ford, Chevy, Chrysler, empty Canadian lots, fewer US sales, billions gone. One Reddit post said it best: if Canada stops buying US cars, the US auto industry collapses in slow motion. This could be that moment. Trump thinks he's winning, bringing back US jobs. But what if this move backfires? By chasing Canadian factories out, he's triggering a backlash from his closest ally and biggest customers. Instead of strengthening the US auto sector, he might just be isolating it. Because once Canada builds its own EVs, once they diversify to Asia and Europe, those customers won't come back. So what happens next? Keep an eye on 3 things. 1. New EV partnerships in Canada, especially any Chinese or European brands setting up plants. 2. Canadian government incentives to reward made-in-Canada vehicles. 3. Auto import data. If sales of US cars start dipping fast, it's official. The boycott has begun. So yeah, Canada bailed them out. They betrayed Canada, and now Canadians are fighting back. Not with anger, but with their wallets. And if history is any clue, when Canadians unite, they win. Let me know below. Would you still buy a US-made car after all this? Or do you think Canada should go all in on EVs and new global partners? Subscribe, like, and share this. Let's keep this conversation going. Canada is not playing games anymore, and the US industry might be about to learn that the hard way. So YouTube thinks you will like this video over here. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. Au revoir.